We are going live in 3, 2, and 1. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Back in the saddle in my little home studio. And so much is going on. I mean, it's like, where do you start? It's like times have changed. It really is kind of a morning in America kind of a situation. Trump is just doing so many things at breakneck speed. It's almost difficult to assimilate it all and to keep up with it. This man has got so much energy. He is 78 years old, and it's like he's basically saying, I've got a 4-year term, I got no time to lose, so grab a hold and hang on. And it's like you're riding a roller coaster and hanging on for dear life. I generally applaud everything he has done so far. There have been a couple of miscues. I've detailed one in a previous video. Another one that bothers me is he's apparently sending more weaponry to Israel. That's not putting America first, Mr. President. But, we can talk about that at another time. Anyway, there's other things I want to get to. In this particular video, happy Monday to all of you. I want to start with Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is the now confirmed Secretary of Defense. This man is really sharp. He's articulate. He's youthful. He's full of vigor. He's good looking. I watched a good bit of the confirmation process where he appeared before the Senate confirmation or the Foreign Affairs, or was it the Defense Committee? Armed Service Committee, I believe it was. It had to be Armed Services. And they voted him out of committee to go before the Senate floor for final confirmation. And of course, if you were paying attention to this at all, this charade, this pathetic display by these pathetic senators in Washington, it was just ridiculous. He got through, but only because we had to call the cavalry at the last minute, meaning Vice President J.D. Vance, who came in and cast the deciding vote for Hegseth because 3 Republicans fell off board or got off board. That would be the Turtle, the senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, former majority leader. He would not vote for Hegseth because of his concerns. Of course, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine. I wish these 3 people would just leave the GOP. They're not Republicans, or they're not, Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump type Republicans anyway. They're just being juvenile. It's like they're laying in the floor like a 3-year-old pitching a fit because they're not, who knows why they're doing it, folks, just to be obstructionists. But whatever the case, he made it in, and he's now the Secretary of Defense. Now, I want to get deeper into his confirmation proceeding because what I was watching on television the other day, as his name was before the Senate on the floor. It was out of committee, but it was in the General Senate. And time was given for, I suppose, any senator who wanted to get up before the full Senate and bloviate for a few minutes about why they were not going to support Pete Hegseth. And I watched Democrat after Democrat after Democrat. They would get recognized, and they would begin their speech on the floor of the Senate as to why they could not support Hegseth. Now, generally speaking, they would list 2 main reasons why they could not support Pete Hegseth. They were concerned about the fact that he has had apparently prior issues with alcohol. We've heard reports that he left a party and he had to be carried out to his car because he was inebriated. And of course, another big concern they have was apparently Pete Hegseth in the past has been a skirt chaser of some degree. and they're just aghast, and they just can't believe that this man has had these moral failings in his life. And they stand on the floor, Democrat senator after Democrat senator, acting so morally superior, so pharisaical, that we would even consider bringing a man like this before the Senate to be Secretary of Defense when we know he is probably an alcoholic, and he's probably got issues of infidelity with his marriage or marriages, and on and on. It was just a sickening display. You're just sitting there watching this going, are you freaking kidding me right now? We've got a gaggle of Democrats who are going to act somehow morally superior? Really? You Democrats are going to school us about somebody's abuse of alcohol, for example? Really? Or the fact that he has issues or has had issues with infidelity in his marriage? Really? Because we could go back and look at all the people you have confirmed, other people you have confirmed, who, shall we say, just don't measure up to the moral fabric displayed by now Secretary Hegseth. Now, I want to bring in the component of religion into this particular issue, because this is something that these Democrats would not even acknowledge when Hegseth appeared before them in committee. Now, Pete Hegseth has acknowledged publicly, folks, that he has indeed had issues with alcohol in the past, and he has publicly acknowledged that he was unfaithful to his wife. He's acknowledged all this. I wasn't aware of any of it until he admitted it himself. But as he appeared before the committee, he acknowledged his past moral failings, but then he gave testimony to his faith in Jesus Christ and the fact that he is now a Christian and he has been forgiven of his sins and he is on the straight and narrow, if you will. He is now married, and they have, I guess, a kind of a Brady Bunch situation. They have, I think, 6 or 7 children in their household now. I don't know how many of them are Pete Hegseth's, and some are his wives. I don't know how that breaks down. But he was very honest with this committee, saying, yes, I have had problems with alcohol in the past. Yes, it is true. I was unfaithful to my wife. But his story is one of redemption. And when he brought in the religious angle to his testimony in committee, it was just glossed over. I mean, it just went over the heads of certainly every Democratic member of the committee, such as Bernie Sanders. And then when it got to the floor of the Senate, it just, that part of the Hegseth story was never told. Now, this is what I want to say about this. I don't know what your particular religious beliefs are. You may be a Christian, you may be a Hindu, you may be an atheist, I don't know. But if I understand anything at all about Christianity, because I am one, some of the basic fundamentals, folks, as we know about Christianity are this. The general belief among Christians is that we are sinners. We all have had our assorted moral failings in life. We've done this, we've committed this sin or that sin. But it is generally the belief of Christians that Christ is the Son of God and He came into the world to save sinners. And if we simply confess our sins, I'm not trying to be preachy, I'm just giving you a general assessment of the religion that Pete Hegseth subscribes to because it's relevant to this story. And if we confess our sins to Christ, He will forgive us and we will get basically a clean slate. we are forgiven, and we just, the Lord said to people, go and sin no more. And that's what we try and do. We may have been alcoholic, we may have been an adulterer, we may have been a drug user, we may have been a bank robber, or could have been a murderer, but if in Christianity, if you confess your sins, you're forgiven, and those sins are no longer held against you. That's a great thing, right? No matter what you did, if your sins are forgiven, it's wiped off the ledger sheet. So here's Pete Hegseth basically telling his story of redemption, acknowledging he's not in denial here. Before the committee, he said, yes, I did do these things. And then he inserted the religious component, and that's where you got the cringe, particularly from the Democratic side of the aisle. And every one of these Democratic senators who stood to speak before the Senate when the whole Senate was considering the Hegseth nomination, not one of them that I saw ever brought the religious component into the equation. They just kept hammering him on his past infidelities and his past alcoholism, etc., etc. And for these reasons, he's not qualified. In other words, the redemption of Pete Hegseth just didn't matter to these people. The idea that a man can have a life where he is immoral or he has committed sins, the idea that that man can turn his life around is lost on these people. And it just made me stew inside because, folks, all of us are sinners. All of us have sinned. All of us have fallen short of where we're supposed to be in life, including these hypocritic Democrat senators. And for them to stand there and present themselves as somehow morally superior to Pete Hegseth made me sick to my stomach. I don't excuse the things Pete Hegseth has done, but if he has turned his life around, can we not give this man a credit? How many of these Democratic senators would walk into an AA meeting and start berating all these people trying to kick alcoholism? I mean, look, I get it. Secretary of Defense is an important job. But every single one of these senators supported Lloyd Austin, who is Pete Hegseth's senator. And need I remind you that Lloyd Austin, not on one, but two occasions, went AWOL. You remember that? He went completely AWOL. He goes into the hospital to have surgery. It wasn't an ingrown toenail or something. It was surgery. They put him under. He is completely out of the loop, and nobody knew it. He didn't call Biden. Well, there's another example. He didn't apparently call anybody. Now, what happens if we actually had a war situation break out and nobody knows where the Secretary of Defense is? Two senators voted against Lloyd Austin, only two. That was Josh Hawley of Missouri and Mike Lee of Utah. But when Lloyd Austin went AWOL, you could have heard a pin drop in the Senate. On the Democratic side, anyway. You would think that this would not only be grounds for dismissal, but how about, what do you call it when you call them before a military tribunal? Court-martial offense? Treason? You're the Secretary of Defense and nobody knows where you are? Because you couldn't be bothered to call your boss, the president, and say, hey, I got to go have surgery. I'm going to be out of the loop for 2 or 3 days. It's unbelievable and unacceptable, yet these pious, Pharisaical Democratic senators couldn't be found when this happened But, brother, they can sure be found to vote against Pete Hegseth because he was once a bad drinker or a skirt chaser or whatever. It is just pathetic. And nobody was more pathetic than the turtle, Mitch McConnell, who at the last minute votes thumbs down, no vote, kind of like John McCain did when he gave us Obamacare. That's his legacy. You know, that last midnight thumbs up vote, giving us all Obamacare. Mitch McConnell voted no on Pete Hegseth, and as soon as he voted no, he shuffled over to the other side of the aisle and started shaking hands with Democrats, his colleagues, the ones he's more at home with. What a sickening display this was, but the bottom line was J.D. Vance, God bless him, came in, cast the deciding vote, and Hegseth was ultimately confirmed. This week is going to be interesting. Besides some other department heads that are going to face confirmation, this week is going to be Kash Patel for the FBI, RFK Jr. For HHS, and Tulsi Gabbard for NIS. These are going to be some interesting committee hearings. How that's going to go, I do not know. We shall see. But it's really bothersome to me that almost every Republican voted for every one of Biden's picks. Not all, but most did. But getting Trump's picks confirmed is like pulling teeth. Even among Republicans, you could expect it from Democrats. But some of these Republicans, and I don't know how this is going to go. I just don't know. By the way, I got my leather jacket on today because I'm feeling bad. More on why I'm feeling bad here in just a minute. But let's talk about these deportations. The deportations are continuing. Tom Homan is kind of like Donald Trump. Tom Homan is on fire. And he continues to deport criminals, illegal aliens. He is... I think we are headed for a showdown in places like Chicago, maybe LA, these so-called sanctuary cities, where some of these mayors are coming out and saying, yeah, you're not doing this in our town. To which Homan is basically saying, watch me. I think if it comes to it, this might be a situation where Donald Trump just needs to call out the National Guard, kind of like John Kennedy did at the University of Alabama. Donald Trump could just call out the Illinois National Guard, send them to City Hall in Chicago and say, step aside, Governor Pritzker or Mayor, whatever his name is. We've got work to do. The gauntlet has been thrown. And I don't think I would want to be on the wrong side of Tom Homan. Folks, this has got to be done. I'm not going to bore you by reading the list, but I was reading the list this morning of all these people being deported. Rapists, murderers, gang members, child rapists, sex traffickers, kidnappers. It just goes on and on. You can't tolerate these people in your society. You do tolerate them in society, and that's how we wind up with the Laken Rileys dead. They've got to go back to where they came from. It's as simple as that. You have to have a nation. If you're going to have a nation, you've got to have laws, and you've got to have walls, and you've got to have rules that everybody abides by. And for years, we've just sat back and been run roughshod over by illegal aliens, people who are breaking the law, folks. It's as simple as that. I'm going to get to more on this in a minute, but I want to talk for a minute about a wrong that Donald Trump has righted. You will recall several years ago during the C pandemic, what dark days those were. Everybody walking around with a mask on and everybody facing peer pressure to take the jabs. And it wasn't right. And there were people that were just made to feel at least like second-class citizens because there were some of us that didn't want to take it. I was reticent to take it, and I didn't take it. And what bothered me was I smelled a rat the whole time. And I was bothered by the fact that the speed of development of these vaccines, it bothered me. And I said, wait a minute, I don't want you putting stuff into my body unless we know, about what the side effects might be at least. I didn't buy into the hysteria. I never did. A lot of people did. And it was a shame. A lot of people trusted what they were told by their government, the Biden government, even the Trump government at the time, and by pharmaceuticals and the AMA. I'm going to tell you, if whatever you hear as being truth from the American Medical Association, you might want to believe the opposite, because it's still the AMA who gives us the food pyramid, which is completely upside down, among other things. But not to get sidetracked, there were a lot of people during the pandemic that lost their jobs because they wouldn't take the jab. You remember that. Remember those days when you could go into a restaurant? If you could go into a restaurant, you had to wear a mask. But remember, as soon as you sat at your table, you could take your mask off, as if altitude had anything to do with it. It was just ridiculous, the whole thing. It was such a scam and a sham. Well, the media never talks about this, folks, but Joe Biden's vaccine mandates were among the most brazen injustices the U.S. government has ever committed. And that's just a fact. They were unnecessary, they were authoritarian, and they were a vessel for destroying people's lives. Over 8,000 American military troops learned this the hard way. Do you remember this? That's the number of service members the previous administration discharged, fired, solely due to their COVID-19 vaccination status, even though the heavily subsidized shots did not work. In other words, they refused to take the jab, and because of that, they got fired. They got discharged. They were in the military, and because they would not comply, they were booted out. Just booted out. It's not right. It's disgusting what they did to these people. Simply because they said, I don't want to take this vaccine. And they should have every right to say that. But because they said that, they were kicked out of the military. Well, Donald Trump is righting this wrong. God bless this man. Marina told me last night, she said, doesn't it feel great to be an American again? I said, yes, darling, it does. It really does. Now, according to the White House, President Trump is soon going to sign an executive order directing the Secretary of Defense to reinstate all military members that Joe Biden fired for refusing to be guinea pigs for Anthony Fauci and Big Pharma's newest drugs. They are going to be restored to their prior rank and receive their back pay and benefits. God bless them. President Trump, once again, with a stroke of a pen, you're doing the right thing. These people are going to get their jobs back, and with back pay, as they should. This is Donald Trump righting a wrong, and I am happy to see him doing this. All right, have you heard about this? Donald Trump had Tom Homan, more directly, loaded up a plane with lawbreakers, illegal immigrants, people such as the ones I was detailing for you a couple of minutes ago. These people were from the nation of Colombia. They have committed all of these heinous crimes, terrible crimes, and we're going to send them back to Colombia. So the plane is full of Colombian criminals, They take off from the U.S., but Colombia will not let them land in Colombia. This is why I'm wearing my leather jacket, because I'm feeling a little bad right now. Trump's got me feeling a little bad, you know what I'm saying? How many of you have ever heard of the phrase, I can't say the phrase, or I won't say the phrase on my channel. How many of you know what the acronym FAFO stands for? Anybody know what that means? FAFO is an acronym that stands for mess around and find out. Basically, that's the sanitized version. That phrase applies here because it essentially means if you pick a fight with somebody that you shouldn't pick a fight with, you may just come to regret it. FAFO. Colombian President Gustavo Petro just became the latest example of why this saying is true. He blanked around with Donald Trump, and now he immediately has found out. President Petro's rejection of 2 U.S. flights of deported Colombian illegal immigrants prompted Donald Trump to do something many of his predecessors could never have imagined, because they didn't have a set like Trump's got. He used his leverage to get what he wanted. Rather than lie down and submit, Trump unleashed a slew of punishments, including ordering a 25% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. from Colombia that would quickly rocket to 50%. Trump tweeted this. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. Now, as soon as he did that, the Colombian president, who heretofore said, no, they're not coming in my country, all of a sudden when Trump's, this man, he is entertaining if nothing else. The Colombian president caved and he said, okay, let me read some of this to you. Bear with me, will you? Donald Trump said this on Twitter, X. I was just informed, this is Trump talking on X, I was just informed that 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. And then he goes on to define what these measures are. And when he did this, then President Petro said, wait. Pardon me. He not only instantly started crawfishing, if you know what I mean, but he said, wait a minute, not only can they land in Colombia now, but he said he was going to offer his own plane. Wait a minute, I'll send our own plane up to get them and bring them back to Colombia. FAFO, President Petro. Folks, I got to tell you, I'm feeling pretty good right about now. I don't agree with Donald Trump about some things. I admit it. But we have never seen anything like this. Not in my lifetime. Not with Reagan. Not with anybody. Any president in my memory anyway. It's just like Trump is saying, I got 4 years and we're going to kick ass. It's as simple as that. Follow me. We're crossing the Potomac. Now, that could be a really good thing, can be a bad thing, I guess, but so far it's mostly good. Trump is using his leverage, and, I know we got some problems that he might need some re-educating on, particularly in terms of fiscal matters, but I got to tell you, this man is doing a lot of good things, particularly with regard to crime, I would say. And I applaud him for that. All right. That's enough ranting for one day. Hey, give me your comments down below. I'd really like to hear what you have to say and do my best to answer all of them. Make sure you like this video if you would, please, and join the old Triple T channel if you would. Everybody go out there. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.